Hello and welcome to another tier list video. Today we are taking a look at League of Legends mid laners. Now, similar to my other League of Legends videos, I'm not going to be ranking these champions based on how strong they are in the current meta, because that's always changing. I'm going to be ranking them based on how much I enjoy playing them. So even if a champion is weak right now, but I enjoy playing them, they're probably still going to be high on this list. So starting us off, we have Ahri, who I don't play a particularly large amount of Ahri. But overall, I still think she's a pretty fun champion. You know, her abilities are pretty good. Even playing against her, she's not too annoying. Just a pretty well-rounded champion. Doesn't require too much effort to play. Pretty straightforward. Ahri, we'll put you in the B tier. Up next, we have Akali. Now, I personally hate facing Akali, but I'm mostly just looking at how much do I enjoy playing them. And I also don't really enjoy playing Akali either. I think her mechanics are, interesting, but her Shroud is one of the dumbest mechanics in the game, in my opinion. And I really just don't like a lot of AP melee champions. So Akali, sorry, you have some fun parts of your kit, but you're gonna be in the D tier. Up next, we have Anivia. Now, on Summoner's Rift, I don't really play much Anivia at all. She's a little too immobile and risky for me, but on ARAM, absolutely love Anivia. Such a fun champion. I think she's really strong right now. And, I really should play her more on Summoner's Rift because I quite enjoy her kit. So, Anivia will put you in the B tier. Up next, we have Annie. Now, Annie is a champion that has always been reliable. I mean, for years and years and years, there's never been a time where picking Annie is just like a horrible thing to do. She hasn't really ever been top tier since probably season 3 or 4, but she's always a reliable pick, something really easy. Maybe if your internet's bad and you're playing mid lane, Annie might be something good to lock in. Really simple to play. I think she's pretty strong. But in terms of enjoyment, I don't really like playing her because her kit is so basic. So Annie, put you in the C tier. Up next, we have Aurelion Sol. Now, good Aurelion Sol players can really make a Sol look really strong, especially if they have good roam timings. But I cannot stand playing Aurelion Sol. I hate the minigame of trying to last hit with my stars. Some people might enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it at all. He's a super immobile champion, gets destroyed by assassins with gap closers, so I do not like Asol. Gonna be in the F tier. Up next, we have Azir. Now, I used to like Azir a little more back in the past when his Sand Soldiers had a little bit longer range. You could place them from further away. He was a bit safer. But now, if you want to be a good Azir player, you have to be really good about knowing when to go in. Using your ultimate is really important. And basically my Azir mechanics are complete trash. So I do not like playing Azir whatsoever. So Azir also gonna be in the F tier. Up next we have Brand. Now I personally prefer to play Brand a little bit more on the support. But mid lane I think he's pretty fun and I think he's really strong. You can destroy a lot of matchups just because you have so much damage. You definitely get wrecked by assassins since you have pretty much no self-peel and no way to escape. But overall, I think Brand is pretty fun to play. We'll go in the A tier. Up next, we have Cassiopeia. Now, a couple seasons ago, Cassiopeia was actually my most played bottom laner back when marksmen were super weak. Not that they're super strong right now, but definitely in a much better place than they were. But I used to play a lot of Cassiopeia bot lane, and I still enjoy playing her in the mid lane. She's probably easily up there for one of my favorite mid laners. Probably not my favorite right now, but definitely enjoy some Cassiopeia gameplay, so she's going to be up in the S tier. Just really reliable champion, fits into a lot of team comps, has a lot of utility as well with her ultimate and her W, so Cassiopeia, definitely a strong pick. Up next, we have Cho'Gath. Now, I think Cho'Gath mid is actually pretty underrated right now. I think he's really strong with the right builds. You can go full AP and just, deal a lot of damage, but I think if you go Turbo Chem Tank and go kind of tanky, kind of AP, you pretty much just wreck every laning phase. I think Cho'Gath mid, pretty good, and I enjoy playing him. It's always fun to press R on Cho'Gath, so he'll be in the A tier. Up next, we have Corki. Now, my favorite role to play is AD carry, marksman, and Corki is pretty much the AD carry marksman of the mid lane. So as you can guess, I enjoy playing Corki. The main drawback with him right now is he really needs to scale up in a late game. He's not good at all for the first 15-20 minutes of the game. So it's kind of a pain to get to late game to where you really get to start to deal a lot of damage. But Corki, definitely one of my favorite mid lane champions as well. Gonna be in the A tier. Up next, we have Diana. As I've said before, I'm not a huge fan of AP melee mid lane champions. And while Diana is definitely strong, I just don't play her much, and I'm not a huge Diana fan, so Diana gonna be in the C tier. Now, I just said not a huge fan of AP melee mid lane champions, but Echo is probably the one exception to that rule. I love Echo, one of my favorite mid lane champions. He was my go-to for quite a while. Echo gonna be in the S tier. Love his ultimate, one of my favorite abilities. Up next, we have Fiddlesticks. Now, you might say, hey, why is Fiddlesticks in the mid lane? And I've asked myself that question plenty of times in my ranked games, but honestly, I think mid lane Fiddlesticks is viable. I think he's stronger in the jungle, but I think he's actually underrated. I think he can be played in other roles. I really think you can play him in almost any role, except maybe AD carry. I think he's viable support, viable mid lane, viable top. It's just really matchup dependent, but if you get a good matchup, I think mid lane Fiddlesticks is pretty good, and he's pretty fun to play, so I'll put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Fizz. Another melee AP mage, specifically an assassin. And Fizz is okay. The thing about Fizz is kind of low elo pub stomper. You know, if you get fed early game, Fizz is gonna just wreck the game. But you know, if he gets behind, he's completely useless. Completely useless. Most assassins, even if they fall behind, they can still do something. Whereas Fizz, pretty much nothing. Really, the only thing he can contribute to a team fight if he's behind is ulting somebody and having a little bit of knock-up on them, but overall, I'm not a huge fan of Fizz, so we'll put him in the C tier. Up next, we have Galio, yet another AP melee mid laner. But Galio's a bit different. He's a bit tankier, more of a team fighter. You know, he's a good roamer with his ultimate, and I quite enjoy playing him because I usually don't build him full AP. I usually go for a tankier build, so Galio, pretty fun champion. We'll put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Heimerdinger. Now, I've said this before, but any champion with sort of like a pseudo minigame skill that you have to monitor all the time, I'm not a fan of. And Heimerdinger, his turrets are just annoying to manage. You know, I don't want to have to care about where I'm putting them down. I just want to throw them down. But Heimerdinger, if you want to play him well, you really got to put him in the right spots in the lane. And just not a huge fan of his kit overall. So Heimerdinger, gonna be in the D tier. Up next, we have Aurelia. Now, I've seen Aurelia mid lanes get so fed in so many of my ranked games. If you're good at Aurelia and you're playing her mid lane, you're probably going to win the game. I've seen her just take over way too many games. I've tried it myself, and it doesn't usually work out, but I still have fun. Aurelia, I think she's really fun to play right now, so put her in the solid B tier. Up next, we have Karma. Okay, I think she's strong, but I just don't think she's that fun. We'll put her in the D tier. Up next, we have Karthus. I don't really like playing Karthus mid lane because you kind of get destroyed by a lot of matchups. I'd probably play him in the jungle, but pressing R is always pretty fun, so put him in the C tier. Kassadin, he is probably the other exception to the melee AP mid lane rule, along with Echo. I really enjoy playing Kassadin. Once you hit level 16, it is just so fun, you know, such a short cooldown on the ult. So fun to play. Kassadin, gonna be a solid A tier. Katarina, I feel like you either never play Katarina or you only play Katarina. I mean, Katarina mains are so good and they're so annoying to play against. Such a strong champion, especially when they get fed. But I don't really enjoy playing Katarina, so we'll put it in the D tier. Up next, we have Kayle. I think Kayle's pretty fun. Like Kassadin, the game is kind of crap until you hit level 16, but once you hit level 16, you just take over and it's a lot of fun. I think Kayle's pretty fun, but I think she's actually probably in a slightly weaker state than Kassadin right now, but still pretty fun, so I'll put her in the A tier. Up next, we have Kennen. I'm not really a huge fan of Kennen. Pressing R is fun, but the rest of his abilities, I'm not a huge fan of. Never been a huge Kennen fan, so he'll be in the D tier. Up next, we have LeBlanc. Now, LeBlanc was one of my main champions that I played back when I was, you know, hard stuck silver back in Season 3 and 4. But I think she's pretty fun. Similar to Fizz, if she gets behind, she's pretty useless, but she can still provide a little more to the team with her snares, so that LeBlanc, pretty good. We'll put it in the C tier. Up next, we have Lissandra. I've never been a huge fan of Lissandra. Her abilities are pretty fun, but she kind of just does a little bit of everything. She has a little bit of wave clear, a little bit of CC, a little bit of getaway. So she's pretty well-rounded, but she doesn't do any one thing particularly well. And usually that's what I look for in a champion, so Lissandra, we'll put you in C tier. Up next, we have Lucian. Now, you pretty much only pick Lucian mid if you want to absolutely stomp the enemy mid laner. really good into melee matchups. You can pretty much prevent them from getting almost any farm in the early game. And I think he's pretty fun. You know, I like playing Lucian in the bot lane, but mid lane is just as good, so we'll put you in the B tier. Up next, we have Lux, super high damage champion. You know, you hit him with the QER combo, and you're probably going to kill anybody, assuming you're not completely behind. But I don't really love Lux a whole lot. You know, she's pretty immobile, pretty slow move speed. Really, the only peel you have is your Q. But the ult always feels good, but not a huge Lux fan myself. We'll put her in the C tier. Up next, we have Malzahar. Now, Malzahar is a pretty boring champion in my opinion. Pretty much just wave clearing with E and Q. But pressing R is pretty fun, unless they build QSS. But overall, not a huge fan. We'll put him in the C tier. Up next, we have Morgana. I personally think Morgana is stronger in the support, but I think mid lane WMax is still pretty good. And definitely annoying if you get all of those points in Q and you got a lot of AP. You can really chunk the enemy team, assuming they don't have a whole lot of MR. So I would say it's a viable pick. It's pretty fun, but don't love it. But still, it's always fun to hit people with Q. B tier. Up next, we have Neeko. Now, like I said about the Neeko support, I don't like Neeko at all. I think good Neekos can really make this champion look strong, but pretty much everybody else makes it look crap. You really got to know what you're doing on Neeko to make it work, and I don't know what I'm doing on Neeko. So Neeko, gonna be in the D tier. Up next, we have Orianna, another champion like Annie, who I think has always been viable, always been strong for basically every season that I can remember. I don't think there's ever been a time where Orianna has actually been a bad pick, but she's definitely way more popular than Annie. I think she brings a lot more to a team fight with her shockwave and her abilities, and she's just way more fun to play. You know, Orianna, she's definitely up there for one of my favorite champions, really well-rounded. Orianna's pretty much what I go to when I'm not sure what to pick in mid lane, especially if I'm blind pick. Just a solid champion, S tier. Up next, we have Pantheon. I think Pantheon mid is pretty fun. If you take Ignite, you can usually get a cheese kill level 2 or 3. And then he has great roaming with his ultimate. And so, you know, if you're good at roaming, I think Pantheon is a great pick. I enjoy him quite a bit. I don't play him a whole lot because it's always kind of hard to pick AD mid laners, because oftentimes you end up being a full AD team if you don't have AP in another lane. But Pantheon mid, pretty fun. We'll put you in the A tier. Qiyana. You know, Qiyana is another champion, kind of like Neeko, where you really got to know what you're doing on her abilities in order to pull it off. But if a Qiyana is good and proficient at Qiyana, I think it's a really scary champion. But like I said, with Neeko, I am not proficient with Qiyana, so Qiyana gonna be in the D tier. I have no idea what I'm doing on that champion. Up next, we have Ryze. I think Ryze is pretty fun to play, but he's really not that fun to play in the early game. Once you get level 3 ultimate and your overload is dealing like over 1k damage to minion waves, that feels so good. I mean, you can clear minion waves so fast. Even if you never teamfight on Ryze, just the wave clear alone in the late game is so satisfying. Really fun. I like Ryze, but you really got to get to late game to have fun, but still going to be in the A tier for me. Up next, we have Swain. Now, I personally prefer to play Swain in the support, where pretty much the only thing I have to worry about is hitting the snare. Whereas in the mid lane, you got to worry about hitting your other abilities, comboing well, using your ultimate going in at the right time, which I'm really not great at. So mid lane Swain, going to be C tier for me. Up next, we have Sylas. I really like Sylas mid lane, but he has a lot of difficult matchups, so I've picked Sylas mid a lot of times and then just got completely destroyed and not had any fun. But I've also had games where I get going early and there's good ultimates on that enemy team to steal, and you can just run over the enemy team. So Sylas, I feel like you either have a lot of fun or no fun, so we'll put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Syndra. I really like Syndra. You know, similar to Orianna, I think she's always been a strong pick. Definitely been overpowered at some points in the past, in my opinion. And, you know, always just a pretty good pick. Not quite as safe as Orianna, I would say. But, you know, tons of damage, always going to have good kill threat. Definitely like Syndra. Going to be in the S tier for me. Up next, we have Talon. This champion is so annoying. Almost impossible to gank in mid lane and literally impossible to chase through the jungle, just jumping over wall after wall. I think he's pretty strong, but I don't love playing him. And, you know, being an AD mid laner, it can sometimes be hard to fit into a team comp. And overall, I'm just not a huge fan of Talon, so we'll put him in the C tier. Up next, we have Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate is pretty fun. He's got great roams with this ultimate. And, you know, assuming you can hit the yellow card and not blue or red card, you know, he's pretty strong. Scales well in the late game. Overall, just a solid pick. Put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Veigar. I really like picking Veigar. You know, he's pretty immobile. Gets destroyed by certain matchups, especially where they have a lot of poke, and your cage pretty much just does nothing to them. But Veigar is a fun champion. It's always fun to press R and just delete people late game. We'll put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Vel'Koz. I think Vel'Koz is probably stronger in the support than he is in the mid lane, but I think he's still a decent mid lane pick. I don't particularly love him, but still solid, just not my favorite, so we'll put him in the C tier. Up next, we have Viktor. Now, Viktor was probably my main champion I picked back in, I want to say, season 6 or 7 when I was a mid lane main. I had more Viktor games than anyone else. Viktor was my highest Master champion for a long time, and even today, you know, really happy with the mini rework they did this season. Viktor, a lot of fun. Still like picking him. Up next, we have Vlad. I can't stand facing Vladimir. I hate facing any champion that has an untargetable ability. But honestly, playing Vladimir, I don't even enjoy it. I don't enjoy his abilities. You know, his kit. Just never been a Vladimir fan. Gonna be in the F tier. Up next, we have Xerath. I think Xerath is really viable both as mid lane and support pick, and you know, especially if you're playing into something like a Veigar, I think Xerath is really good. You can destroy a lot of matchups. Really fun to farm with. Xerath, just a solid pick. We'll put him in the A tier. Up next, we have Yasuo. I like picking Yasuo, but I usually pick him in the bot lane actually with a nice support that has good setup, like something like an Alistar or even a Blitzcrank. But mid lane, I think he's still a fun pick. Not my favorite, but definitely a solid choice. We'll put him in the B tier. Up next, we have Zed. Now, I had sort of a short hiatus where I pretty much only played Zed for like 30 games in a row because I was like, I'm going to become a Zed main, become really good. And after 30 games, I was so bored of Zed, and I think I've maybe played him twice since then. But, you know, he's still a good champion, still fun, but I think I burned myself out on him, so only going to be in the B tier. Up next, we have Ziggs. I think Ziggs is a pretty strong champion, pretty annoying to face against, super good wave clear, but I've never been a huge Ziggs fan, so he's going to be C tier. Up next, we have Zilean. I think mid lane Zileans can do really well, especially if you have, you know, a hyper carry on your team that is a good target for your ultimate. I'm just not a huge fan of mid lane Zilean. If I'm playing Zilean, it's usually going to be in support, so I'm not a huge fan, so we'll put him in the C tier. Up next, we have Zoe. The sleep bubble is probably one of the most annoying abilities in the game, and, you know, for good reason. It's really strong, and I enjoy using it. I like Zoe. I'm not a great Zoe player, but I'll occasionally bust her out here and there. Fun champion. I enjoy it. We'll put her in the B tier. Up next, we have Zyra. Now, I think Zyra is definitely better in the support than she is in the mid lane, but you can make mid lane Zyra work. I'm just not a huge fan. I don't even like Zyra in support either. So Zyra, gonna be in the D tier. Up next, this is Yone, one of the newer champions. I really like playing Yone. He's probably my favorite AD mid laner to play right now. I haven't put a ton of games into him so far, but really enjoy playing him. Anytime I can fit in an AD mid laner into the team comp, I usually pick Yone. So Yone, gonna be in the S tier. Up next, we have Seraphine. I've only played one game as Seraphine, and I did not really enjoy it. I don't really like her kit. It's a little too similar to Sona, just better. But even then, I'm not a huge fan. So Seraphine, we're gonna be in the D tier. Well, that was a lot of champions to get through, but I hope you guys enjoyed.